What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive in all things Neil Young. Have another live release, another one of the original bootleg series releases. This is number 3, Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, 1971. This is actually the third released from this tour. This is the Journey Through the Past solo tour. So we have 2 releases also from the same tour. The Massey Hall release is from this tour. The Young Shakespeare, Massey Hall, a Toronto venue, Young Shakespeare, Connecticut venue. Those are from earlier in the tour. This is the last show of this tour. Neil would do a couple more shows in 71 overseas in London, England. So being that this is the last show, that in and of itself, I think is kind of significant. Because these other 2 shows were the same tour, you have pretty similar set lists. There are songs performed in those other shows that aren't here, couple songs. But you do have a number of things on this release that make it stand out, other than just being the last show on the tour. This apparently is the first time Neil ever played harmonica live. Right before he performs Heart of Gold, he says something about this was a special occasion, so I'm going to play the harmonica live. There is a special occasion vibe about this show. There is some Neil Young patter, some chatter between the songs. There is a very sort of not as rowdy audience as we have on the other 2. I would say both the other shows, plus other Neil Young shows in general. It is the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, which has this certain level of esteem, and there is sort of a this is a special occasion, not just a rock show vibe to it. But Neil sounds amazing. The sound is incredible. Acoustic piano, the very spare usage of the harmonica that we get on here. Sounds amazing. His voice sounds amazing. It is another instance in which when he speaks, you're like, oh, I got to turn up the volume just a little bit to hear what he's saying before the guitar comes back in, and I turn it back down. But that's a very minor complaint. Definitely not as much chatter going on here as on some of the earlier shows and other shows. But that's one of the things that's special, the harmonica. 2, after the Young Shakespeare show, either the show immediately following that one or the one after that, according to set lists that are available. The show that immediately follows that, I haven't seen a set list for. The one after that, there is a set list. Is earlier in the tour, A Man Needs a Maid was part of a medley with a shortened version of Heart of Gold. So you'd get A Man Needs a Maid, Heart of Gold, you go back into Man Needs a Maid. At some point after the Young Shakespeare show, Heart of Gold became its own standalone song. So this is the first re-release we have of that from this tour, in which the set list is pretty identical. But when we get to the part where it's A Man Needs a Maid, Heart of Gold, now it's Heart of Gold, and then we play that, and then he plays A Man Needs a Maid. Also, Heart of Gold is now on acoustic guitar instead of on piano, as it was with A Man Needs a Maid. So that's pretty cool. What else do we get? Also in I'm a Child, he sings a couple lines from You and Me and plays a little bit of You and Me before he actually goes into I Am a Child. You and Me would appear on Harvest Moon decades later. There's a 3rd track on there. So that's happening. Other than that, I think it's pretty much your typical Neil. Incredibly typical Neil show. Absolutely fantastic. Set list, as usual, is fantastic. Performances are fantastic. Opens up with On the Way Home. That melody for this song, this is like all of 1970s soft rock seems like it owes a debt to On the Way Home. It's just such a perfect soft rock song. Neil delivers it so perfectly. The melody is so perfect. The performance is so perfect. Just what a phenomenal way to open a show. Tell Me Why is next. Really confidence, really full performances. Very few artists, to me, can be on the stage by themselves with nothing but a guitar or a piano and deliver such an all-encompassing, all-engaging, just an utterly compelling performance as Neil. We get Old Man doing a little brief introduction to the old man who lives on his ranch. Talking is low in the mix. We get Journey Through the Past. He switches to piano. Cowgirl in the Sand. Kind of briefly kind of teases a slowed down intro in the beginning, just like a do just like kind of about 10 seconds of drawing out the intro to kind of build it up before he commits to it properly. Feels a little more ominous. I don't know, there's a dark vibe to the Cowgirl in the Sand, which I think works incredibly well. Then we get the Heart of Gold. Sounds gentler, sounds fresher, sounds like it's a song he's only been playing for a handful of shows, at least in this version. Absolutely beautiful. We get A Man Needs a Maid. This would be one of the last performances of this until 2007. He would do it at a couple shows when he went to London later in the year, and then he wouldn't do it again until 2007. So we get, you know, A Man Needs a Maid, and it's one of its final glorious appearances. Sugar Mountain, in the middle of this, he does a lot of talking. He tries to encourage the audience to sing along with the choruses. Imagine you're in the shower and you just sing it really loud. I'm the one under the lights on stage. You're staring at me. Sing. Nobody's looking at you. You're in the dark. And then they do a chorus. And then before he gets to the verse that's underneath the stars, giving back some glares, you have your first cigarette, that whole verse, he tells the crowd that he wrote 126 verses for this song. This was the worst of them, but he was encouraged to keep it in. If after he sings it, the crowd sings along loudly with the chorus, he will forget how horrible of a verse it was. The crowd laughs at every line in the verse as if it's like they either clap for it or laugh at it, as if it is a joke verse. Nothing wrong with the verse. And then they sing along with the chorus. Fun little performance. Don't Let It Bring You Down. Feels big, feels urgent. Great performance of this. Love and Mine on piano. Beautiful song. Needle, just a devastating song. There's some big urgency towards the end of this. Like he's performing. Neil's engaged, but in a bigger, this is a big performance at the end of the tour type thing. Ohio, something about Ohio has this resigned sadness in the beginning. And again, as he's performing it, he's bringing kind of these bigger vocals to, you know, a pavilion, Dorothy Chandler's pavilion. There's a bigness to this performance, but musically, especially that intro, has this almost like just sadness about it. I mean, such an intense song. See the Sky About to Rain on piano. Really great kind of bright piano through the middle of this, even though the vocals maintain sort of that See the Sky About to Rain solemnness about them. Solemnity. I'm a Child has that You and Me intro, which is pretty cool. And then when he starts singing the song proper, the crowd goes crazy. And then we close out with a rather restrained dance, dance, dance. He sings like a verse, and then he's like, I can hardly hear you. And then you hear some clapping, and the audience gets into it. But it doesn't feel as celebratory and chaotic and happy and upbeat as the other two performances we have, or other performances of this. It has a little like end of the tour sadness, almost like Neil doesn't want this tour to end, or he's so exhausted he doesn't have the energy, but it feels more like the former than the latter. But yeah, then we get a dance, dance, dance to close out. An incredible listen. Absolutely fantastic listen. Sound quality, performance, song selection, zero complaints. If you're a hardcore Neil head, it has those slight little differences that are like, all right, that's cool. First time he played harmonica apparently live, according to what I read. So that's cool. I mean, he does kind of explain beforehand. This is a special occasion, so bringing out the harmonica. But yeah, I recommend it if you're a Neil head. Yes, it's pretty similar to other releases, but all three of them are awesome to listen to. So yeah, that's it. Those are my thoughts on this. Another Neil Young bootleg series release, trying to get them all covered as we go through the timeline of studio albums. But yeah. All right, let me know your thoughts on this. I recommend it. Eventually, I will rank all live albums. That's going to happen at some point, but that'll just be a quick run through so I don't have to talk about all of them in one video because there's a lot. But yeah, I'm rambling. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Thanks for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.